So in this video, I'm going to share with you why I've traded my fancy studio in Berlin against the shocking thing that's behind this door. And I'm going to walk you through a couple of the mental models that I've used for making this decision. I'm also going to share with you what the future holds for this channel, for my professional career and all of that. And yeah, it's just going to be a vlog style live update. If you want more of that, just let me know in the comments. If that is something you absolutely don't want to see from me, also leave a comment. And don't worry, there's going to be enough tutorial stuff in the future as well. Now, let's take a look behind that door and see what's actually in front of us. Welcome to my new studio. So here I'm sitting in this bare bone rooms. No equipment at all, besides just a laptop and a couple of other things. No acoustic treatment, I don't even have speakers here. And you're probably asking yourself, why did this guy with the fancy studio from the other videos throw himself into this situation? Now, to understand this, I really want to take you behind the scenes and tell you a little bit about my life overall. So it's going to be a bit vlog style video. I think it's important to be transparent about these things because you're probably wondering why is everything so different now in the next, I don't know how many videos. I've made the move to a new city, at least temporarily. This will be something permanent for the future. And I'm going to reveal where that city is and where there's maybe even an opportunity to meet with me in person if you're around. I will do this at the end of the video. But for now, I want to take you behind the scenes of the decision-making process that actually led to this. So now, in case you don't know me, I'm Philip from Pick Yourself and I produce mix and master since almost 2 decades now. So for 20 years, I've been in the music industry. I've pretty much done everything from being in a band and touring to then producing records for bands, mixing them, to then moving into the electronic music scene and building a studio in Berlin with the reputation of being one of these like mixing and mastering houses that specialize in electronic music. Work with a ton of artists and labels from this specific scene. The tracks got millions of streams. I have not added them up, but it's probably 50 to 100 million streams right now that these records have produced overall. All of this to say is like Berlin has been the foundation for all of this. When I moved to Berlin 7 years ago, I was pretty much nobody. No one knew me. Of course, this channel didn't exist. This is only existing for like 2 years now. No one knew me when I moved from Munich to Berlin. And this is also the moment where I went full time. So before that, I was just doing part-time record producing. The other 50% went into being strategic creative director of a marketing agency. In Berlin, I really developed this name for myself in this specific scene. Started to work with labels, started also releasing on some of the Berlin labels, and all of this turned into what I have built right now. So why am I giving this up essentially and saying goodbye to Berlin? Now, the main reason is that I put lifestyle design over everything. I think we don't ask ourselves this question enough, like, where do we actually want to live? How do we actually want to live? Who do we spend our time with? And how do we fill our time with stuff that's meaningful to us? So for many years, I've been actually avoiding these like hard pressing questions. And so if you're that kind of person that is not daring to ask yourself these hard questions and trying to find an answer, it can be pretty easy to get comfortable and just flow through your life until you, I don't know, get old and start to ask yourself these questions then when it's actually too late. Now, I'm in a very special season of life right now, and I will share with you what that season is. So we have 2 kids right now. The oldest daughter is 3.5 years old and my son is almost 1 year old, so 11 months and a bit. The issue with that is that you have to figure out a lot of things before they actually go to school. Now, you can still do a lot of moving when they're in school. It's still possible, but it's definitely easier to do all these things and ask yourself these hard questions before that. And we started to ask ourselves, like, do we actually enjoy living in Berlin still? And the answer had 2 different sides to it. So on the one hand, there's this super bright side of Berlin, which is it is still the absolute creative hotspot in many regards. There's obviously other cities that are super creative, don't get me wrong, but Berlin has this special vibe that just is. You can't find it anywhere else, in my opinion. It's a lot of creative scene, a lot of electronic music scene, and it's really easy to be in touch with what's currently going on. For example, something fancy as 3D sound, so sound installations that I've been enjoying making. This is super cutting edge stuff, and not a lot of places around the world exist where there's like an actual scene for this kind of stuff. There are a couple of other spots, but it's definitely rare. But it was so easy to immerse yourself in there for me and to just work on these sound art installations together with other people that I met in Berlin. For example, Jacob, who's one of the coaches in our coaching program. This is just what makes Berlin so special. You are somehow at the forefront of these things that are happening on a very high creative level. Then there's obviously this amazing club culture in Berlin. So the clubs are very special, they're very unique in a way. And even though some of these clubs make a lot of money on the back end, it still does not feel commercial overall. So there's a very intricate sense of underground culture going on still to this day that carries over from the days when a lot of the clubs were still just squat buildings, essentially. And that is something that I find very unique and that I always will love about Berlin. But then there's also a dark side to all of this, and it becomes pretty apparent in the winter. So if you're not someone who enjoys being in a dark, gray, cold, windy city where the clubs are actually closed, you will not enjoy the Berlin winter at all. So in essence, we started to ask ourselves, what's in there for us? And if you factor also in that the housing prices are actually insane in Berlin and they're just climbing up and climbing up and climbing up. Yeah, but all that to say, we asked ourselves the question, how do we actually want to live? And a few key reasons became clear. So we wanted to live close to the sea. That was something that we both were always dreaming about. That was just a very special thing we had in our minds for many, many years. We actually wanted to live close to the sea. We also wanted to live in a warm place, so somewhere that is not as cold in the winter as Germany, especially Berlin. And so we started to think more and more about what this place might look like where we want to live. We also didn't want to live in just another capital city, like a real hotspot where the rents are increasing like crazy. It also became more important to live close to nature, so having good nature around you, but also being not too distant from a bigger city. And so all of this adds up to a place that is definitely not located in Berlin. And don't get me wrong, I will always be connected to that city. There will be a lot of traveling back and forth because we also have relatives and a lot of good friends still in Berlin. So we will be traveling quite a bit between this place right now and Berlin. But overall, it just became clear that this will not be the place where we want our children to grow up and also where we don't want to spend the next phase of our lives together. Now, this has consequences for my studio, obviously. So to give you some context, 95% of my studio work is not coming from Berlin. And the 5% that come from Berlin is people that they don't really care if I'm in Berlin or not. They will just send me the work anyway. So it doesn't matter that much from a work perspective. Still, it will mean that sometime in the future, I will definitely build like a proper studio again, not in Berlin, but in a new place. And until then, I will work in kind of a different situation, like in a setup like this, where I'm working out of a spare bedroom. But here's the important takeaway for you. My ego doesn't need the big fancy studio with perfect acoustic treatment. And that is really important. At some point, if you are experienced enough and you have like a good pair of headphones and basically just a fast computer, this is all you need to deliver professional work in this day and age in the music industry. Do I enjoy having fancy speakers? Do I enjoy having acoustic treatment? Well, yes, of course I do. And this is why we'll also go back to this at some point. But for the time being, for the situation in between, I have zero problems working like this and also transparently showing this to you here on YouTube because yeah, I mean, everyone can benefit from this. And it's easy to blame the lack of success or the lack of, I don't know, whatever you want to get in terms of results. It's very easy to blame this on the lack of gear or lack of perfect acoustics. But to be honest with you, if someone steals my headphones tomorrow, if someone steals my fancy ass converter tomorrow, I will freaking continue on a cheap pair of headphones that I plug in directly to my laptop, and still I promise you that the result will be a lot better than what a lot of other people can achieve with perfect acoustics, treated room, and so on. It really comes down to your experience level, your level of critical listening skills, and also this confidence that you build up just by doing the work again and again and again over many years. And this also humbles me once again a little bit because I can empathize with anyone who's not at that level yet, who's constantly second guessing their decisions, who's constantly struggling to get their mixes to sound great. You are still on the right path. It's a really important message to hear. It just takes time. It takes constant repetition, and it's not because you're doing something wrong. It's because you're still on that journey of learning. Do as much as you can with what you currently have and be fine with it. Now, the next question that probably pops up is will Philip's clients care about where he's working from? And the answer is no, not at all. I've done it already. So a couple of years ago, you might have seen some of my old videos where I'm just walking somewhere around holding my phone up and basically talking to the camera. Some of these videos were made in Tuscany, in Italy, and I was using pretty similar setup to what I have today. It's not entirely the same, but very similar. I was working remotely from there, and I still mixed and mastered records professionally. Some of those songs have gained millions of streams, so it's definitely like, it's not like the perfect mix and master was the reason why it's getting millions of streams, but definitely didn't get in the way of it. And like, I didn't get any more revision requests than usual. It was at the same very low level, which is perfectly fine. With mastering, there's almost never revision requests. With mixing, obviously there is some back and forth, but it rarely goes beyond revision 3. And all of this just tells me that it's entirely possible to deliver the client results just like it's the case on any other day in my studio back home. And that's great news, because obviously it just means that I'm very flexible to work wherever I want with a very minimalist setup. Now, overall, I must also admit that I enjoy this kind of challenge these days, to work in non-perfect circumstances. I mean, of course, the video sound quality is not as great as usual because there's a lot of reverb in this room, and we can fix some of that in post-production, but still, it just will not sound the same. It's also like working in a new environment also puts some toll on you mentally, because you have to tune your brain to that new place and to really be able to focus. And I mean, this is just a spare bedroom, like I said. It's not like an external studio. And sometimes the kids will run around in the house at the same time, and I still have to work somehow. So in these non-perfect circumstances, for me as someone who used to struggle a lot with perfectionism, I can confidently say there's a life beyond that, as you can overcome perfectionism. For someone like me, I'm enjoying these types of challenges right now. I think it's great to be able to work in non-perfect circumstances and still ship the work, like this video, like the next videos that will follow. And so, yeah, overall, I just wanted to thank you for being with me on this journey. If you like what I'm doing on this channel, make sure to like the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because I will put out a lot more tutorial videos again. Now, I've promised you to reveal the location where I'm currently at. Now, I'm not going to give you the specifics. That's something you don't do online, but I will tell you that I'm in the region of Valencia in Spain, and it's a beautiful small town where we are currently, and this is potentially a place where we will live in the future, or at least like in a similar area. And so if you're currently in Spain, in the region of Valencia, you can reach out via email. Just drop me an email, philip@pickyourself.com. And I might organize like a little meetup if there's a couple of people who want to do this and meet me in person, maybe enjoy a couple of tapas together. Also, one more thing, I'm thinking about doing a video that reveals the kind of setup that I have here, that just walks you through what equipment am I currently using, what gear do I think is essential for providing great results. And I will just maybe do a little video tour on how I'm working currently. If that's interesting to you, leave a comment below, and I will see you in the next video.